coming home to the place that I know I will always belong.
Hey guys, this is our first ever Skype interview on Alternative Indian. We have Chris today. How you doing, man?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. So this past Friday you released your album, Coming Home. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, yeah. This is my first full-length album. I'm a folk singer-songwriter.
Right.
Just moved to Spokane, Washington from Los Angeles, which is a big transition. A totally different city and environment. And was in a band project in LA called the Wilder Society.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was super fun. We did an EP down there together, and but with moving to Spokane, quickly realized the band was not going to continue.
Right.
And for me, I wasn't sure what would come next, so just took a look at all the material I had. Had this big batch of songs that had never been released before. At the time, my wife and I were living at a lake house in northern Washington, and it was the dead of winter. No one's around. We don't have, $10,000 to get into a studio to record, so we just used the lake house as a recording studio and self-produced and tracked the entire project right there at the lake, which was a challenge for sure. It was my first time producing, but it made the album a lot more special that way because we could take as much time as we wanted with it, get creative, make some mistakes.
Absolutely.
But it just turned out really well, and it was fun to, a lot of my songs, a lot of folk music in general, talks about, the woods or nature, the environment kind of has that woodsy, rootsy feel.
Yeah.
And so to track all these songs out in nature, at a lake in the middle of winter was truly a special thing. I thought it was pretty fun.
Absolutely. I've been giving it a good listen, and I enjoyed it a lot. And it's, as you said before, when you produce music yourself, it's a whole different ball game. You have so much more of a creative freedom with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I one of my good friends, he lives down in Naples. That's where I'm currently living right now with my family outside of school when I'm not at Full Sail. And he came up here, and we recorded an album in my friend's apartment. So It was a pretty cool process. I got to do backup vocals for him, and I helped him out with the lyrics process and stuff. And it's just so much more unique to the point where you get to just work together to come out with the purest vision you can, for your music.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
some of my favorite artists also do self-produced work. I mean, there's this one band that I follow from New York who record every single song they produce in their living room.
Right.
And they've been immensely successful, and they actually just hit the top 100 for the first time for them, which is really cool. And going along with that, I heard that you also hit number 30 with the singer-songwriter charts. Was that?
Yeah, on iTunes, the singer-songwriter charts, the album shot up to number 30, which was fun. I didn't have any expectations with that at all.
Wow.
When that happened, that was kind of exciting.
Absolutely. So you just also had an album release party in Washington State. How'd that end up going?
It was great. Since I moved up here to Spokane, I had been playing a lot of shows just solo, just me and the guitar, which, I like a lot of my songs in that way that they can still translate fine with just an acoustic guitar. But for the release show, I really wanted to put together a full band for it to kind of present the album as it was produced on the, on the actual record.
Right.
Called on some friends and friends of friends to kind of play some of those parts, drums, bass, keys, all that stuff. But yeah, the show was Friday night at a great venue in Spokane called the Bartlett.
Cool.
And I mean, they've been great in welcoming me into the community of Spokane, the creative community, the musical community. So it was a good turnout. I think we had around 100 people come out for the show, and having only lived here a short amount of time, that was a great turnout.
That's awesome.
More than I expected. So it was a good night. Played all the way through the album, all 12 songs.
Nice.
The final song, Coming Home. On the actual album, it's just acoustic and vocals. It's super stripped down. So I unplugged the acoustic, and my two friends and I just walked right into the audience and sang it right there on the floor with them.
Wow.
Unmiked, unplugged, and it was a pretty special moment.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when you just take that that sound away and you just kind of like bring in the silence. It really puts the crowd into a trance to the point where they feel like they're part of it with you.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
it just adds a special effect to the way that your listeners take it from you. And as you said, you have it stripped down the album as well. You just have it playing acoustic, which it's an amazing song as well. I listened to it first on your channel. You released it about I want to say a few months back, and you told in the comments it was about your mother and home and how that all revolved around you. So could you tell us a little about how the process of writing was influenced by those things?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this album, it's interesting because it's 12 songs, and it's some of the oldest song, I think, is 5 years old. So, these songs have all kind of taken shape over different periods of life. But, I think the progression of the album is so interesting. Is if you know the last 5 years, of my life. 5 years ago, my wife and I moved to LA. It was a very exciting time. Right. It was, where you're very optimistic and positive, and you're like, we're gonna take the world and all this stuff. And it's a very fun time of life. A move to any new place is always pretty fun and exciting. And the first track on the album is "Across the Room." It's probably the most fun track on the whole album. And then it does slowly become a little bit more melancholy. The album does, and a few friends kind of picked up on that, how the album takes a shift emotionally and the feel of it. And that's kind of just reflective of the last few years. Like there's been some hard times, there's been some hard things, and I was always known as the happy songwriter, 5-6 years ago. And I felt a certain pressure to be that, but I kind of gave myself freedom to write not only from a happy place, but also at times from a sad place or a somber place. So I allowed kind of that to reflect in my songwriting. And you kind of see that, and also the theme of home just kept coming up again and again and again. I changed there's a song on the album called Lonely Roads.
Right.
And initially the title was Take Me Home. And then we're looking at all the songs going like, there's way too many songs with home in the title. So we had to change that to Lonely Roads just to not make it redundant. But that is so prevalent because I think, I grew up, my wife is from Spokane, where we live now, which is a very green, mountainous, it's nature's all around, So being in LA, we didn't have that. It was very different. And there were some really beautiful parts of LA. But I think for us, we always felt a sense of loss in a way where we look out the window and it's always sunny and 75. We didn't have the seasons. It's like right now I'm looking out my window and the trees are yellow and orange and red. And you never have that in Los Angeles. And if you grew up with that, then that's a part of who you are.
Right.
That's your roots. And so I go ahead.
I can relate to you 100%. I'm originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I'm currently living in Florida, which is like the Sunshine State, and going from one beautiful place where you get to experience all the seasons to basically a retirement state, really puts an impact on you. And I was okay with it at first, I was pretty optimistic. I'm a really optimistic person myself, and I look forward to as many opportunities as I can. But once I kind of sat down and I had my first Christmas and Halloween without the cold, I was just like, what's it just doesn't feel.
I know.
It just doesn't feel right. There's something off here, and honestly, my roots are definitely still up north with me, and my parents don't you hate shoveling snow? I'm like, no, I made a lot of money shoveling snow, and I also had a great time having fun with my friends in the snow, and going out to coffee shops and just enjoying the beauty of it, and especially with the fall too, with all the colors, and it's definitely something that really mixes up your life, instead of having a recurring day over and over again with that sunny, you get to experience different seasons. And another cool thing about that too is, one thing about me is I'm always listening to music, and I relate music to seasons itself. So I'll be listening to one artist in the fall, one artist in the winter, one artist in the spring, and it just kind of helps vary the way that I listen to music, And it's an interesting thing, yeah. But I can definitely understand where you're coming from when it comes to moving, because the past 9 months for me have been the most difficult for me, I'd say. And I'm luckily I get to go back up home for Christmas this year, so I'm looking forward to that a lot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we moved to Spokane in December.
Right.
And we left LA on December 5th.
Mm-hmm.
And by December 7th, we were in Spokane, and it was snowing. It was -5.
Oh, man.
Totally different environment. And but it didn't feel wrong at all. It felt really right. And I got to shovel snow for the first time in years, which was actually so enjoyable. It's just like, it's really fun to be able to do that stuff. And like you said, it changes things up. The seasons are so important, and so yeah, that was big for me, that concept of coming home with this album. And the last song, the title track, Coming Home, I wrote that my last year in Los Angeles, when I was kind of coming to my end a little bit of just going like, I can't, something needs to change. And coming home, the chorus starts with the word honey, and quite a few people assumed it was a romantic song, or that's but it's a term of endearment my mom used for us kids, my 2 brothers and sister and me, is calling us honey. And when I think of home, in many ways I think of her. She's just super sweet. I love when we get to go home for the holidays. She makes pancakes in the morning and chocolate chip cookies at night, and just makes us feel loved and warm and welcome. And so that song in many ways was about her. And it was fun. Her and my dad actually came out for the album release show on Friday, and she got to hear that for the first time live.
Wow.
And she was a sobbing mess, which was pretty fun. But she loved it, and it was fun for me to get to play that for her. She'd heard it before on the album and stuff, but for the first time live, I thought that was pretty fun.
Absolutely. It's a completely different experience when you see music live than when it's recorded. I personally think the best way to listen to music is live. And second best way, I'd say vinyl. But also, just when you throw in your headphones and you get to be surrounded by the music, honestly, all around, that's just a great, thing to experience. That's why my life revolves around it, because it makes me so happy. But as you said before, with your music as well, it can remind you of different things, reminiscing of home and with family. And also, it can be happy and sad. As you said, Melancholy Turns on the album. When I listened to your album within the past week, and then today I listened to it again, I was thinking to myself, it started out really happy with Across the Room, and then one song that really kind of touched me was Carry Me. I would say that's my favorite song off the album right now, especially because of the way that the backup vocals complement your voice so well, and the piano comes in so perfectly, and all the songs just have a really nice blend as they blend from the beginning to the end of the album, and it just wraps up with Coming Home. It's a great sound, and I don't know. What would you say is your favorite track on the album that you enjoyed creating the most?
Oh gosh. I don't know that I have just one. If I could just play it, Lost was really fun for me. That's track number 3. I'd say Lost was fun for probably a different reason. But I'm known mostly for playing acoustic guitar.
Right.
And I was gifted an electric guitar this last year, and so I kind of started experimenting with that. You've seen bands like the Lumineers begin bringing in electric instruments.
Right.
Lord Huron, his last album is so good and very electric driven. So I kind of started experimenting with that, and so Lost was one of the first songs that I wrote. And it's the primary instrument is electric guitar. I wrote it on electric and then performed it on electric. So that was kind of fun because for me it gave me a chance to kind of branch out from what I have done for years, which is just play acoustic and sing. But that was kind of fun to kind of branch out a bit. I think Across the Room's a fun one. That's what's hard with 12 songs. I've only done EPs before that, so it was only had to pick a favorite out of 5. It's harder to pick a favorite out of 12. But I mean, Carry Me is a fun one because I co-wrote that with one of my best friends from LA, a guy named Sean Cunningham, who's just a great guy. He was my drummer in my last band. And so, I mean, that one's special just because, you know, he and I are so close, and that was fun to create something together. You know, I think Better Part of Me is another one of my favorites, just as a songwriter, you know, because really worked hard at that to kind of, you know, craft the verses, tried pushing myself to not just take the first easiest line that comes up in my head, but really try and hone and polish those words.
Right.
You know, the chorus is pretty simple, but tried keeping it hooky, you know, and then the bridge kind of changes things up a bit. So I don't know. It's hard to pick one. I wish I could just pick one right, you know, just off the top of my head for you. But I mean, since it is 5 years of work, it's like each one has a bit of something special, you know, that means a lot to me on that record. So, man, almost all of those, it'd be tough to pick just one, I think.
Well, I agree completely with you, and it's a good it's good to know that you can't just pick just one, because that way, you know, it shows that like your music is almost like your children. You know, you created it yourself, and you can't just love just one more than the other. You know, you gotta love all of it equally for it to be you know, something that you want to release, because you're releasing this permanently to the public.
Yes.
And it's like you want to be proud of this music, and definitely it is something to be proud of. And I also was wondering, so you did self-produce this album yourself. What about the Dusk and Dawn EP? Were those done in the studio, or?
They were done in the studio. So back in late 2011, I was living in Redding, California.
Okay.
And I was gigging around town a ton, you know, mostly just like bars and restaurants and coffee shops and stuff like that. And these guys had started an indie label there called Rooster Records, and they signed me to the label.
Cool.
So yeah, it was a cool experience. I got to go into a studio called the Sound House. A guy named Jeremy Edwardson produced it. Did a great job. And so we ended up doing 2 EPs at the same time, and then just staggered the releases.
Right.
So yeah, that was an interesting project. I was still pretty fresh. Those were my first EPs. So yeah, I was still pretty young as an artist. I do have things that I would change now that I look back. The biggest thing would have been I would have asked the producer to really try and push me to find my sound.
Right.
Rather than going in the studio and going, oh, I love Mumford & Sons, which I did, and I still do it, you know, and kind of very much going, what would Mumford & Sons do with this track? Let's do that in the studio. Right. So I wish that I had pushed myself in with the producer's help to really find my own sound. And I think we did that a little bit more with my band's EP in Los Angeles, the Wilder Society. We did an EP called Lion's Den, which I love that EP. It's 5 great songs. And then I think even more so with this full-length album, in many ways, because I produced it myself, and it wasn't in a studio, so there wasn't the time constraints, where, you know, when you book a studio for a week and you're paying thousands of dollars, you feel the pressure of like, we have to get this thing done. Recording it yourself at the lake, there's no time constraint. So you can go back, you can rework stuff, you can really fine tune it. So that was something. I mean, even being a little bit older now, being a little more, you know, seasoned as an artist, kind of knew a bit more of the direction I wanted it to take, the feel that I wanted it to have, and being the producer on the project, you know, kind of had the control of the project to do that. So I'm pretty proud of how it turned out. You know, there was definitely moments of doubt of going, this is my first project I'm producing. Like, am I good enough? Do I know what I'm doing? Like, should I have hired somebody else? And yeah, a few moments of panic, but you know, having my wife there who has a great taste in music, and her always affirming, like, well, affirming this is great, keep going, or that's terrible, please stop, don't ever do that again. I trust her opinion because she does have a great taste in music. So that was great. That was super helpful.
You know, the ones you love are usually the ones that are supposed to be the most brutally honest to you. And, you know, you can say, hey, you know, you don't want to just be nice and be like, yeah, that's good. You know, you got to be like, no, this isn't good. It's not working. All right,
Sure.
You can't put this in. You can't put this in the album. what are you doing putting this weird sample in there? Don't do that. You know, it's like, it's good to have guidance from the ones you love because they're the ones who are the most honest with you. So listening to your lyrics and your sounds, it almost sounds almost cinematic. Would you ever consider, you know, even composing for films with soundtrack wise?
Yeah, it's something that I've started already doing.
Really?
Yeah. I'll explain. So I got signed with a licensing company in Portland called Marmoset Music. That was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And over the first 3 years, what they would do is like I released these few EPs and I would send them the songs and also instrumental versions of those songs. And they would then pitch those to music supervisors on, you know, commercials or TV shows or films or whatever. So I got a few, you know, nice ones. REI, Keurig Coffee, Williams Sonoma, you know, some stuff like that. Yeah, so that was kind of fun. And then last year is when I started really, the gear started turning of like, what if I just started creating instrumentals, you know, specifically for video projects, you know, like film, you know, cinema, stuff like that. So I started doing that last year of producing it right here, you know, at my apartment. And I got my first big project. Nike did a documentary on Kevin Durant and the Golden State Warriors the last few months ago, and I produced this track called "The Fallout." It's very different from anything that I would ever put out myself. You know, it's these kind of haunting oohs with this just like drum beat with claps and electric guitar, and that's it. It's super bare, but it kind of has this very cinematic, haunting feel, and Nike used it on the project, which was super fun. So yeah, that's definitely something that's hopefully in my future more and more is beginning to produce, you know, specifically for film and TV.
Awesome, that's great to hear. I mean, I would love to hear it in movies, and when I see it, I'll definitely be like, "Knew that guy."
Yeah, I'll send you to it.
Oh yeah,
tracks. You can take a listen.
Of course, yeah. So we got a few more questions left. Let's talk about your covers. I've seen a lot of them on your YouTube, almost all of them. You like to cover folk artists like The Head and the Heart, The Lumineers, and Mumford & Sons, just to name a few.
Yeah.
So do you think these covers helped you grow your audience, and do you also perform any of them live?
Do they help? I don't know. You know, it's hard. As an artist, there's so many different ways there's a lot of different ways to be successful as an artist. I'm not going to say that I've figured that out yet because, you know, I still work a day job just like a lot of people do that are pursuing a career in music. So I know some people that are super successful at the YouTube thing. I've had a few videos that have done pretty well. You know, a couple of the Head and the Heart videos have gotten a decent amount of plays. I did Only Fools Rush In, you know, Can't Help Falling in Love with You by Elvis. That one did pretty well too. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of more just fun. Like I said, when I was back in Reading, I was playing a lot of these bar shows and restaurant gigs. And those are 2 and 3 hour sets. Those are like, that's a long time to play music. Yeah. And, you know, it's a restaurant type of environment. So no one really knows my songs all that well. So you kind of throw in some covers. I would say at like my average show, you know, like if I'm going and playing a gig at a venue and it's 30 minutes or 40 minutes, I generally fill that time with originals. But if I have a longer set, I'll throw in a cover every now and then. Of course.
Yeah, so for our final question, we want to know if you could tour with any of the bands you've covered or just any bands that you would love to, you know, travel with, who would you be preferred to tour with?
Gosh.
Can name more than one if you want.
I know. The two that come immediately to mind would, you know, be the Lumineers or the Head and the Heart. You know, nice. Both of those artists have been such inspirations over the years. You know, they've got the songs that are never gonna not be played. You know, I'm always playing those two bands' music. You know, whether driving in the car or, you know, crying or reminiscing. I mean, so many memories are attached to those songs. So yeah, honestly, either one of those would be just fine with me. I would be ecstatic. Yeah.
Well, I'd hope to see you touring at some point. Maybe
Thank you.
I'd love to see you at some point in time as well. And I just want to say thanks for coming on the show. It was great. Congratulations on your new album, and we can't wait to see what comes next.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, we'll see you soon. Have a good one.
Thanks.
When you're at your end, come back to the start. When you're at your end, come back to the start.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this interview, you can go ahead and click the subscribe button in the top left corner, and you can check out our other interviews on the right in the other boxes. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.